I'm Bikem. I work at Essential as an engineer, and I co-authored ERC 7521. I've been in this industry for a year. We're building infrastructure and tooling to prevent centralization in the blockchain. ERC 7521 is trying to create a generalized standard for smart contract wallets to allow intents to be used in the Ethereum ecosystem. The more you're specific about what operations you're doing, the more possible it is for some revenue to reach the wrong hands. So I don't want to use the wrong words, but the more likely you are to be screwed up. So we're trying to prevent the users from getting bad UX, prevent the value to go to the wrong hands or proportionally go to the actors. And also it's like a community-owned ERC, so that's why it's important too. Yeah, so we submitted the ERC itself and we have implemented an example. We have an example implementation, but it's by no means a finalized version. We want the community to be involved. We want to have discussions around these. One thing that requires the community to be involved about this ERC is that the way that intent standards are created, it doesn't matter what intent standards are for the sake of this conversation, but it's permissionless. So there needs to be some community effort and some community agreed upon standards that are trusted, because otherwise the users will have trouble trusting standards in this ERC. Once there are community agreed upon standards, then there's going to be really seamless UX for the users. Let me just go to the similarity first. Neither are protocol level improvement proposals. Both are application level improvement proposals. One is more about the tokens that the users exchange, and one is the intent standard is more about the operations that the users want to perform or want performed on the blockchain. So for example, when you want to swap a token, which is an asset, right? You create a transaction that transfers that token to some other address, for example. And this transaction defines exactly how it's going to happen, because a transaction is just a user op, which is a definitive thing. Whereas an intent specifies the destination, not the journey. So a transaction specifies the journey. That can be an analogy. When a user creates an intent, they just specify the end state that they want to achieve. Of course, it's more complicated than that, but I'm trying to simplify for the sake of this conversation. And finding the actual journey, the actual path that goes to that outcome is where the computing power and the effort should be focused on, rather than front-running or back-running or sandwich attacking or trying to profit while putting other actors in a disadvantageous position. At Essential, we're trying to accelerate the transition from value extraction, which is what happens when you try to extract more value for yourself as an actor, to maximum satisfaction, which contributes to the whole ecosystem and the entirety of the actors, as opposed to just one. I can describe it as simply as we're trying to decentralize this entire flow. We're opposed to bad MEV. We don't think that MEV can be mitigated completely because it is an emergent property of the system. But if we put into account that MEV is a thing and design systems around that, and we're also working on a protocol that does this, then it can be more used for more good. But yeah, we're not opposed to MEV because it cannot be prevented. So a toxic MEV is when, for example, as a user, you submit a transaction that does a huge swap, and let's say the pools of the assets are so small that swap actually changes the values of those assets. If I have control over the ordering of the transactions, for example, if I'm a block builder, I can insert my own transaction right after yours to make use of that value change. And therefore, I extract that value for myself. Whereas a good MEV is when a solver, for example, because the solver works to find solutions to the intents of the users, they're spending computing power and time for this, right? So they should be compensated for that, and that's good MEV. But if a block builder is the only actor that has control over the transaction ordering, and that's the only place where MEV can emerge, then that's very centralizing, and that's what we call bad MEV.